Taping. Okay, so we're doing the consecutive integer word problems, and with consecutive integers, you're solving a word problem that's going to have more than one answer. It could be about ages, it could be about a lot of things. So you have to read the problem long enough to get the big three. And what I call the big three is you need to ask yourself how many things is it talking about? What kind are they? Are they consecutive? Are they consecutive odd? Or are they consecutive even? And these two things you can do in your head. You don't have to write that on paper, but what you do have to write on paper is you have to name them. That is imperative. Okay, so you've got to name them. That has to be on your paper before you start writing out your equation, because you will refer to it depending on the problem. So let's talk about the consecutive integers. What would I call anything that is an unknown to me? I don't know what it is. What am I going to call it? X. Let's pick a variable. I use X. You can use whatever you want. So I'm going to call it X. It does not matter whether we're talking about consecutive odd, or consecutive even. The first one will always be called X. Well, let's talk about just consecutive. Consecutive means what? One after the next after the next. So if I'm talking about consecutive numbers and my first unknown is called X, what do you think the second one would be called? X plus 1, because I'm going to add 1 to it. So if X was the number 1, the next number is 2. How do I get to 2? I add 1. What would a third one be called if I was talking about 3? X plus 2, and so on and so forth. Okay? Well, if the problem is talking about consecutive odd, it's going to say odd in the question. So if I'm talking about consecutive odd, what do you do to any odd number to get to the next odd number? You add 2, because from 3 to 5 is 2, from 5 to 7 is 2, from 7 to 9 is 2. So if my first one is called X, my second one has to be X plus 2. And then if I had another one, what would it be called? X plus, what did you say? 4. Thought I heard somebody say 3. X plus 6, so on and so forth. That's odd. Is even any different? What do I do to any even number to get to the next even number? Add 2. So it's going to be the same as the odd, and so on and so forth. So once you know this, then you should be able to tackle the problem. So in looking at the worksheet you guys picked up after you took your test, I am going to I'm going to do this exercise 7, because that's the easiest, and we need to start with the easiest. So exercise 7 says find 2 consecutive integers such that their sum, what does sum mean? Add. Their sum is 89. Okay? Before you start doing any mathematics or building an equation, yes, sir. They're right up here on this table. See it? So I am going to, before I do anything, I'm going to ask myself the big three, ladies back there in the back that aren't listening because you're talking. I'm going to ask myself big three. How many? It will always tell you in the equation. How many? 2. Are they consecutive? Are they odd? Or are they even? They're consecutive, so now I know what to name them. What is the name of the first one? X. What is the name of the second one? X plus 1. Now I've named them, now I can proceed. It tells me that there's sum, and sum means to add, so I got to add these guys and set it to equaling 89. And now I just solve the equation, so I add my like terms. And then I subtract 1. And I divide by 2. And so X equals 44. But if you just tell me X equals 44, I'm going to count it wrong, or at least I'm going to take points away, because it doesn't want to know what X is. It wants to know what the two integers are. So if this one is 44, what is this one? 45, because you add 1 to 44, it gives you 45. Does that make sense? My two ones that were absent yesterday, does that make sense? Okay, it takes practice. Now, we're going to jump to a more difficult problem for the sake of video, so that you've got both an easy and a more difficult. So let's go ahead and let's look at exercise number 10. And I'm going to have to write it up here so everybody in my audience on watching this video understands what we're doing. So this one talks about three sisters. And they have ages that are consecutive odd. So they're consecutive odd integers. Okay, so it says find the ages if the sum of the youngest and 3 times the oldest is 5 less than five times the middle. Okay, so that's all I need to put up there. I kind of shorthanded it a little bit. All right, the big three. How many? 3. Tells me right there. What kind? Odd. Tells me right there. What's the name of the first one? X. What would be the name of the second sister? X plus 2, because you have to add 2 to get from one odd number to the next odd number. And what about the third sister? X plus 4. Perfect. Okay, after I've done this, now I'm going to go back and build the equation. I'm going to build it as I read it. You guys in the back need to stop. If you will build it as you read it, you will be successful. If you try to read it and then start coming up with something, it's not going to work. Okay, so find the ages if the sum of the youngest, well, the sum of the youngest is X, and 3 times the oldest. Well, this is the oldest one here, the 4 years more. So plus, now 3 times this one, I have to do a parenthesis. I have to do it 3 times the whole thing. 3 times the oldest is in mathematics means equals. 5 less than. This is where kids make the mistake. They want to do this. This is not correct. They want to go 5 minus. That's not going to be 5 less than. That's going to be something less than 5. So be careful on that. When it says 5 less than, you need to put 5 over here and a minus in front. That's going to make 5 less than something. 5 less than 5 times the middle. 5 times my middle is X plus 2. That's how you build that equation. And I built it as I read it, which is the only way you're going to do it successfully. Now I'm going to solve it by distributing. Giving me X plus 3X plus 12 equals 5X plus 10 minus 5. And according to the steps that I gave you, you distribute, then you clear fractions. We don't have any fractions. Now I'm going to combine like terms. These are like terms. These are like terms. Now I'm going to get all my variables to one side. I like to move mine to the left. You may do it opposite. That's fine. It's not going to make a difference. Now I've got negative X plus 12 equals 5. Now I've got to subtract 12. Negative X equals negative 7. I can't have a negative X. I'm going to multiply by negative 1. X equals 7. That tells me that the youngest sister that we're talking about is 7 years old. And if she's 7, when you add 2 to 7, that one's 9 years old. And if she's 7 and you add 4, that means she's 11 years old. That is my answer. You can stop it.